I'm going to go ahead and do a video for review 3. We kind of rushed through a lot of these, and that way you can look at them again if you want. All right, so these are the problems for review 3. Your test on Monday is covering these sections. Okay, 11.3 and 4, and then 12.2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so with section 11.3, that was the one that dealt with and it also dealt with conditional probability. And I just put a couple problems here so that we could touch on some of the issues to think about. So your test won't be exactly what you see. You should still look at your notes, go back and review all the homework you did, look at the quizzes you took, kind of study all of that. But this might just help you get oriented. All right, so question number 1, the big idea there is the idea of with replacement versus in number 2 and number 3, where the cards are being dealt and then they're not being replaced into the deck. Okay, and that's both 2 and 3 do that. So you want to kind of compare the ideas and think a little bit about them. All right, so on the first problem, we're going to be dealt 2 cards, one right after the other. And in between, we're going to put the card back in the deck. So before we draw the second card, we'll have put the first card back in. Okay, so you've got the probability of getting a heart for your first card. For your second card, it's the probability of getting a diamond. Okay. All right, so when you think about it, you've got these 2 events, and you're going to look at the probability of each of those. So the probability of getting a heart would be 13 cards out of 52 that are hearts. Now, the card is going back into the deck. So when that second event happens, you still have 52 cards. All right, and you're drawing a diamond this time. And see, diamonds and hearts, they don't overlap at all, right? The diamonds are completely separate. So you kind of assume you got a heart on the first one, but that doesn't affect how many diamonds you'd have in the deck. You're still going to have 13 out of 52. Now here you can multiply straight across and then simplify, but 13 out of 52 is 1/4. So we could simplify first. We know the answer should be 1 out of 16. Okay. Now the difference between that and question number 3 is what I want to do next. No, I don't. I want to do number 2 next. All right, so on this one it says we're going to draw 2 cards, deal 2 cards, one right after the other, but we're not putting the card back in the deck. So we still have these 2 events that we're going to do. And then the first time, we're drawing, find the probability that both cards are black. So first time, you'd have 26 cards out of 52 that are black. So the probability would be 26 out of 52. This time it's without replacement. So that means when you get ready to draw that second card, there's only 51 to choose from. And since the first card was black, see, that was supposed to be the probability of a black card followed by another one. So you're going to multiply like you did on the other one, but there's only 51 cards, and you had to go to just 25 there. And again, you can multiply straight across when you do this and then simplify at the end. So for instance, 26 times 25 would be 650. And then down here, you could do your 52 times 51, okay, which is 2,652. And then you can divide on your calculator those 2 numbers. And when you do, depending upon how you set it up, if you're using your fraction key, it'll give you back a fraction that's in simplest form. Or if you do a decimal, you might have a decimal, but you can use your F to D button to get it back and find out that when it's fully simplified, it's 25 over 102. And things need to be fully simplified for your final answer. All right, now number 3 is also without replacement, but it has, I think, something that might make you answer it the wrong way. It says if 2 cards are drawn at random without replacement from a standard deck, find the probability that the second card is red, given that the first card was a heart. Okay. So it's like here, okay, probability, the first card was a heart. And then here, you want the probability that this card is red, assuming that you had a heart on the first one, but your answer is just going to be this part right here. Okay. So, if you thought about it kind of like number 2, you might have said, okay, well, it's going to be 13 out of 52. And then for the next piece, okay, since the first card was a heart, and since I drew a card the first time, then I know I only have 51 left. The probability a card is going to be red is usually 26 out of 52, but this is the second draw. So there's only 51 cards to draw from, and this one was red. So that means instead of 26, you'd put 25. And it didn't ask for the overall probability of the event of these 2 cards happening. It asked, what's the probability you'd get red given this happened? So the answer is really just this piece right here, the 25 out of 51. Okay, now let's look at question number 4. So we're looking at all the ones that are related to 11.3 right now. Okay, so one card is going to be selected from an ordinary deck of 52 cards to start with. A is getting a queen. Event B is a diamond. I meant to say B is getting a diamond. And this one says determine, and it uses this, the probability that B is going to happen given A. So what I like you to think about here is not the complicated formula, but if you're given A, that means you're already down to having just queens at that point. So in 52 cards, there's only 4 queens. And then you want to know the probability of getting a diamond now that you've reduced your sample space to just the number of queens. This is just the number of queens in the deck. Well, there's going to be 1 queen of every suit, and you just want a diamond. There's only 1 diamond out of that, so that probability would be equal to 1/4. Okay. All right, so question number 1 was 1/16. Number 2 turned out at the end, once it was fully simplified, it'd be 25 over 102. Question 3 is 25 over 51. And on number 4, your answer would be 1/4. Okay. All right, now let me move this over a little bit. Let me do 5 right here, because 5 is actually conditional probability also. So you had that chart to look at, and I'm going to go ahead and draw it here for us. We had men and women, we had non-smokers, we had a light smoker, and then we had a heavy smoker. And then they went ahead and did all the totals for me. I like it when they do that. Okay, so let me get those numbers in here real quick. Okay, and then 550, 529, and 1079. Okay, so this is what you had to work from. T stands for total. Okay, so this particular question said you're going to randomly pick one of the students in this chart. Okay, but you want the probability the person is a non-smoker. Probability of non-smoker given the person is a woman. So just like on the previous one, you don't want to use this for your denominator. Yes, you're picking one person out of these 1,079 people, but you're going to limit yourself. You're going to reduce your sample space to be just the women. So that should be the 529 for the denominator. Okay, then you look only at the women row. And the question was probability of a non-smoker. Given that you've reduced your sample space to being just the women, non-smoker would be 376 out of that. Okay, and then you've got to simplify it. And on this one, when I take 376, oops, calculator's not working well, 376, and I put it in using the fraction key, it comes back that's it. So it doesn't simplify. If they ask for it as a decimal, because I may have just, not put what they wanted, then you would have actually divided it, just taken 376 divided by 529 and found out what it was as a decimal, and then watched the rounding. So let's say they want us to round to the thousandth, to 3 decimal places. What I see is 0.710775, etc. Thousandth is here, so I would look at the 7, and if they had wanted it as a decimal to the thousandths place, I would have said this right here. Okay. All right, so questions 1 through 5 were designed just to remind you about what was happening in 11.3. Okay. All right, so all of those, that was 11.3. All right, now we're going to get started on, let me see if I can make sure I have plenty of paper. We're going to get started on 11.4 in a minute. I think I'll stop sharing and post this video to keep the videos nice and small.